and it is something we want available for future reference. Oh. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so so let's get the recording going here. Oh my god, about to be kidding me. Alright, so let's get the recording going here.
Recording is on.
And we got our notes out. Okay, here we go. Also, you forgot to do the title. Do you want me to do this for you?
No, I can do it.
Yeah,
No
line
moment,
3 setup. I thought I went over that before. Alright, so
thought that you
topic
were doing
1.
that. It's done.
Yeah, so work continuity group is a team, right? So we have the WCG team, right? But it also is much more than just a name. It is a very specific model for how to get work done, and it consists of 2 parts, right? The first part obviously is the 1.5 hours per week per day, and the 1.5 hours per week per work assignment, right? So that's sort of like the overall model. And it's technically per day per octant. So if you're working more than 1 octant, you can work more than 1.5 days, 1.5 hours per day. Okay, so does that part all make sense?
So right now we are in Sonic, correct?
No, this is Cobalt.
Sorry, Cobalt, and this is go all the way into 2 hours, 1.5 hours in the future, correct?
Every octant, so you take the 24-hour day and you split it up into 8 octants, and so each octant has 3 hours, exactly 3 hours per octant for a 24-hour day. That makes sense?
Okay, so I'm working 2 hours in Cobalt.
Time to pause. Please stop. Close your eyes. Count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Open your eyes.
But the budget in the agreement is 1.5 hours per day is the model, and that's the agreement. Okay, that makes sense?
Okay, so that 0.5 hours that I'm doing extra, what happened with that?
That goes into equity value and bonuses. And so if you do the client work and you do the actually complete work, and you'll get that and more. So your base pay for the 1.5 hours per day is how much you get paid for not completing anything. And then if we do more and we do bonuses and we do additional things, then you can get more pay. But you automatically get all of the tokens, which you can also sell and get additional value as well.
Okay, so no matter that I'm working 2 hours in this particular octant, that work is going to be reflected in bonuses and stuff. Okay, thanks.
All the value gets documented in the equity and in the token payroll, and so it's automatically all there. But the only way to get the upfront pay is with the client work output. Okay?
Okay.
Now we have to do client work income. All right. So the first part is basically just very simple: 1.5 hours per day, 1.5 hours per week per work assignment. The second part is a little bit more detailed, and it takes a little more training to understand it. And the best thing to, like, we're basically going towards a task model and less responsibility for work continuity group. So when we recruit people and we outreach for people to get involved, they would typically, the public would get involved first in work continuity group, right? Then for people who are doing really well, then they would get promoted into SFC team or Unity team or other teams where you have more flexibility to work more than 1.5 hours per octant, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the model for work continuity group is how to create everything as simple as possible. And the best way to do that is every single day is basically exactly the same. We want continuity every day. And the goal is obviously, 7 days a week, even when me and you aren't here. Hopefully, you're doing 5 days a week. I don't want to do more than 6 days a week. But if I do 5-6 days a week, you do 5-6 days a week, we just need 1 or 2 other people who are going to cover the other days that we're not going to be working, right? So we'll get to that eventually, and we'll continue our recruitment. But the continuity every day means that we want to have a very simple, clear model and structure
Time
for
breath.
new workers.
Please stop and get ready. Now inhale. 1, 2, 3. Exhale. 1, 2, 3. Pause. Inhale together. 1, 2, 3. Exhale, relax.
Yeah, so we want a very simple, clear model structure for new workers and existing workers. It's easy to follow and very repetitive, right? Repetitive. So the model overall is pretty simple. You basically do, 30 minutes per day on communications. You do 30 minutes per day on internal operations, and you do 30 minutes per day on client work. And then that will get you all your pay, right? And so the idea is that we want to repeat this every single day. But when we repeat it on a daily basis, there are a couple things that come in that make it a little bit more nuanced, and there's some details that we need to work out. And that's what we're trying to do now. So the first thing that we want to try to consider is...
Sorry.
Yeah.
Question. So this is going to be what we're going to focus on from Monday and forth?
Yeah, every day. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, every day, or at least 5 days a week with you. That we're trying to create a structure for our sessions so we come in and then everything happens exactly the same every day. And basically we work on the same priorities and we move things forward, day to day, week to week. It just all should be very simple, straightforward, and repetitive. And it should be very easy, right? This should not be difficult. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. So, and this is the hard part, right? It's hard to make things simple. Does that make sense? It's much easier to just do a bunch of crazy stuff and just like all over the place, which is, most of what we do, right? So we're trying to refine and organize and simplify and get things more streamlined and efficient and effective, especially with training people all across the world who might not understand cooperatives, might not understand...
I understand the thought analysis. I know that great simple stuff are a little bit hard, so I understand the concept.
Cool. So we know that every single session has what's called a prep up. We know we have every session has a setup, every session has a view up, every session has a wrap up, and every session has a follow up.
Oh, your audio is back. Okay.
Yeah, so I was saying just every session has a prep up, setup, view up, wrap up, follow up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we could think a little bit about, this is not really what we're focusing, but we can think a little bit about, okay, we know there's going to be a tiny bit of communications at the beginning. So it's kind of hard to not start with some amount of communications, but we don't necessarily need to do,
Time to pause.
30 minutes.
Please stop. Close your eyes. Count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Open your eyes.
So we begin session at Cobalt Hour 1, right? And I would even go so far to say before the session, let's say 15 to 20 minutes before, we want to create notes ideally and do reminders for the sessions so that people know the session's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And then we might also want to I think there was one other thing. Create notes, do reminders, check-ins. I think it's fine. Okay. So anyway, so this would also be what?
Share the notes in advance, I think.
Yeah, create share notes. Yeah, create share notes. Document the notes. Just generally getting organized. Clear priorities and focus. Like we should have clear priorities and focus before the session begins. And
also, the setup, for example, today. I thought that someone is going to come up, but paste the notes in the W. Not having my mind, but on already put the notes in the document in the WCG team sheet and things like that to have all the things so we can start working right away. Is what I understand.
Correct. Yes, exactly. Okay.
Okay.
So anyway, so the beginning of the session, we probably need to spend a few minutes to get our communications organized, get agreement on the first topic, right? But then the idea is to immediately get into our first topic, which would be 30 minutes of client work. So I feel like in general, what makes the most sense is as quickly as possible every day, we just always prioritize and start with client work, because if we don't do that, it's just too easy to get distracted and to not focus on client work income, and then people complain about the pay, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it just makes sense that we would train people and we would organize people like, if your priority is getting paid, your first topic 1 should always be client work. So basically for us, our priority topic 1 for client work is going to be basically at this time token profiles, client relations, investment agreement, FQN past payrolls. If you want to do some POS, we could, but these would be our top priorities currently based on our plan.
Time to stretch. Please stop, stand up, and stretch and move around for 30 seconds.
All right, quick stretch. All right. So are we on the same page so far?
Yes, sir.
So then we do 30 minutes of internal operations. So for the internal operations, we are going to want to obviously focus on...
Sorry,
yeah.
I got a question about client work.
Uh-huh.
We need to address these token profiles, client relations, and FQM past payables in one session, or we can focus in one of those
Choose
in
one.
session.
Yeah,
Okay.
choose one for each day. So
Okay.
you know, we could easily have 5 and every day we do a different thing, right? But we could do, if we, you know, as long as we don't spend more than an hour and a half on a week, we're fine.
Okay.
Okay? In general. Yeah. So it's a little under our monthly payroll policies, it's a little bit more flexible. We also try to calculate weekly, but it's a little bit more flexible, where if we spent 3 hours in 1 week, it's not like we just automatically lose the value, because as long as it's all calculated within a month's payroll, as long as the value's there from the client, we can get paid. But then the next week or the week after that, we need to stop working on that. So if we work on something and want to complete it and put in extra hours, we still will get paid for that, especially if we finish it, as long as we keep the total number of hours under the amount allotted by the client for the month. Okay?
Okay, understood.
Cool.
Thanks.
All right, so then we have the internal operations. So our internal operations priorities, obviously we have like budget, we've got payroll, and I would just kind of categorize these all together. So you have budget, payroll, and recruitment, which are kind of related. Then you have your documentations, and staffing, and the multimedia internal operations, right? And then you've got your admin, coordination, trainer, right? So those are like the main 3 internal operations that we kind of be choosing one. And again, our goal is to be doing these every month. We need to do all of the internal operations so that we are able to get the full value from the income, right? If we don't do the internal operations, we lose value. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. So unlike the client work, we can just choose 2 or 3 of the dozens of client work priorities.
Time to pause. Please stop. Close your eyes. Count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Open your eyes.
But once we bring in the money, we are required to complete the actual client work, right? All of the client work has to be completed every month, right? So we can go over this So you have all your communications priorities, then you have there's 9 different client work priorities, and I'm thinking about kind of organizing it into 3 groups, which would mean we do 30 minutes a day, but that would be 10 minutes each, right? So you do 10 minutes on budget and payroll, 10 minutes on doc staff, and 10 minutes on admin coordination. That would be the perfect amount for one single day. But obviously we can just do 30 minutes one day on one, 30 minutes on another day on another. And then you have all your client work. So the client work, you can choose any client work, whereas the internal operations, you do have to do all of the internal operations every month to get all of your value. All right, so then after we complete our internal operations and client work, then we can go back to our communications and do like our wrap up and or decision making and or voting forms, right? Voting forms, etc., etc. So, and this also could include training, right? If we wanted to do some training. And there's also going to be a component of multimedia here. All right, so multimedia comms, right? So there's multimedia support and multimedia comms. So are we on the same page as far as like the idea of, you know, and I would say the only essential component of the follow-up, so after session would be the follow-up, and we call that, basically, I think the easiest way to think of it is that we need to be doing our storytelling, telling and reporting and updating, you know, et cetera, like we actually need to finalize the session, you know, and also, you know, task assignments, work assignments, right? Cool. Document.
I got a question about
So
that.
we don't need to worry too much about the after session follow-up, but it's just good to know that it exists. Yes.
Okay. I got a question about that because there is 2 hours in this big session, the begin session, and you told me that is 15-20 minutes before, so we can responsibility organizing, and there is also a follow-up. So that means that a worker is going to work 2 hours, but at least 1 extra hour preparing or the after session follow-up, correct?
Well, let's just say follow-up and prep up for 5 to 20 minutes.
Get ready. Now inhale. 1, 2, 3. Exhale. 1, 2, 3. Pause. Inhale together. 1, 2, 3. Exhale. Relax.
We can say it's like 5 to 20 minutes, and typically it's not like, it's not necessary. Like we can do the prep up and the follow up during the session if we just make ourselves do it. Okay.
Yeah. One of the things I'm bringing up, why I bring this up, because these are the expectations of the worker. Because, for example, for me, this is something that is new, because I was, okay, I'm here 2 hours and that's it. Now I see here that I need to do, that makes all the sense, to do some prep before the meeting and then to follow up after the meeting, if I am able to do so.
I mean, I don't think that's anything new. I mean, the idea that someone shows up for work and is not prepared for it is kind of crazy. I mean, I would never show up for work where someone's paying me and not be prepared for the session, right?
Yes.
So sure, if you don't ever prepare for any sessions that you ever go to for any work ever, then sure. But anyone who's actually professional is never going to show up without being prepared, right? So being prepared and prep up is just for me a completely normal, just professional thing. And I really don't care if people do it or not. Like, people don't have to be professional with us, but it's good to understand the training that prep up is technically part of our model. But either way, it's not a big deal. Typically, we create the notes, and as long as we show up on time and we get clarity on our priorities, then we just spend the 5-10 minutes. I mean, this session, it took us a half an hour to get organized so that we could start working, right? So the point is that there's 2 things. 1, being prepared for the session is going to make everything go faster. And then 2, having the same structure every single day and specifically knowing what client work we're going to be working on and what we're going to be doing every day is going to make everything go a million times faster and be a million times more efficient, so that we're kind of do this once and then we don't have to worry about it again. And so we should be able to get to work within the first 5 to 10 minutes. That make sense?
Yes, of course. But So I don't know if I understand myself. So 2 hours, but you need to have at least 20 minutes adding to those 2 hours. So that is very important in the expectations for the
But not
work.
necessarily. We could just, you know, start the session at the bottom of the hour and then only go an hour and a half or whatever. I don't know. I just don't. I don't care. We could do all of it within the session. There's nothing that says that we can't do the prep up and the follow up within the session. But the point is
Okay.
that prep up and follow up is slightly different than setup
Time
and
to pause.
view up
Please stop.
and wrap up.
Close
Okay?
your eyes. Count 1, 2,
Okay.
3, 4, 5. Open your eyes.
And prep up and follow up are much more important for specific sessions. So if you think about it, the only time where we really get into the structure of our sessions and really get into prep up and follow up would be for main sessions. So buddy teams, you really can just ignore it, right? But then for main sessions, you start getting into, okay, you really do need to be prepared. You need to know what your topics are, your proposals. You need to be organized. You need to know what's going on. And typically, main sessions are supposed to start tracking the network equity. And then from there, you have planetary sessions where you get your global sessions and your planetary sessions. When you start doing those, it's almost essential to be scheduling someone a half an hour early to really get prepared for the whole event and get everything organized and get having the recordings going so that when people arrive and you have a lot more people at those sessions, everything's ready to go and organized. And then at the follow-up, there's much more engagement in terms of the network equity and the planetary equity and just all the value that's dealt with after the session, as well as what comes out of the session, the storytelling, reporting, and documentations from a planetary session. That is just so much more involved than just a normal buddy team, right? So all of our sessions are the same, and buddy teams technically have some follow-up, but it's just very, very minimal. Whereas you go to like a main session, a planetary session, there's massive follow-up that comes out of a planetary session. And you want to be much more prepared for it. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah. So the more important the session is, the more prep up and follow-up that you have. The less important it is, just like a normal buddy team, very little, don't really need to worry about it. But it's good to know that it exists in terms of the vocabulary. Because what we do for follow-up, what we do for prep up is specific. Okay, so are we good on this?
Yes, sir.
Cool. So the goal is kind of having a structure that we repeat day after day after day. So there's two other components that we want to go over briefly. Components. So one of them is the new model for 3 workers where each takes a different position. So these would be the positions of, you know, basically you have communications, you have internal operations, and you have client work. So in this model, you can have 3 workers all each individually working on separate priorities simultaneously, ideally in silence, right? So you do silent work, and you have 3 people each working on 3 separate priorities during the session, so that you are working an hour and a half on communications, an hour and a half on internal operations, and an hour and a half on client work simultaneously in the same
Time
session.
to take a break. Please stop. Write down whatever you were about to say and take a break for 6 minutes.
And then lastly, the last thing is the tracking. So the tracking of the daily goals and the repetitions is the last part. So you just have the categories, or we also call them trajectories. And so we just list the categories. And then every day we do them, we do like a check. And we say, okay, we did this 1 day in a row. And then we say, okay, 2 days in a row, right? So every single day we do it in a row, we track it so that we know how many days have been continuous for each priority, like category and trajectory, okay? So we can, what?
How we track it? There is a spreadsheet for that, or?
Yes, we're going to create a spreadsheet for that, and it's going to have all this information too. So I'll make a task here. So we want to create a spreadsheet for our work continuity group team continuity. So it's the work continuity team spreadsheet, right? Where we track all of our continuity from day to day. All right.
Okay.
Cool. All right. So let's take a break. When we come back, I'm definitely down to go to the next topic. I think this is good. And then during the wrap up, right? This would happen during wrap up is when we track our continuity on the continuity spreadsheet. All right. And I'll add that here to the wrap up and get the main thing.
Okay. Okay. So see you in 5.
Yes. 5 minutes or 4 minutes or whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
End
It's
of
4
break.
o'clock.
Time to start. Please get focused on the session.
All right.
I'm back.
Any last questions before we go to the next topic?
No.
Cool. All right. So hopefully we can start building our continuity. So now we want to get into client work, I believe. So what client work do you want to do?
So client, I think the topic that already got client relationship and investment agreement. That would be
Great.
great.
Cool. All right. Oh, one other thing. There's one I wanted to mention for topic 1 that I forgot, which is that for the main sessions, I would like our main sessions to ideally follow the same structure as our buddy teams, right? But obviously, there's much more flexibility, and it's just you never know what's going to happen at a main session, so we just have to be prepared for anything. But if we can structure the main sessions the same, then that would be ideal. Does that sort of make sense?
Okay.
Yeah.
But in the main sessions, we don't do any kind of work, so it's just like the setup to be the same. Okay, so we got, yeah, okay, I got it.
Yeah, so instead of doing the work, it's like, okay, we always want to start with planning for client work, right? So it would be the planning for the client work and making sure all the questions are answered, any client work that needs to get done. Then we do the planning and coordination for the internal operations. Then we do the planning and coordinations for the communications. That make sense?
Okay.
Yeah, so it would just kind of be like the same structure in terms of like the order, but obviously instead of focusing on the work, we'd be focusing on the decision making and the planning and the coordination and making sure and answering questions and training and just all the normal things that we do at a main session. Yeah. All right, so for topic 2, we're going to do client relations. All right.
Okay.
All right, so this is pretty exciting, very exciting. So the current client structure is that we have internal clients and we have external clients, right? So obviously we don't have any external clients currently, and we need to do what's called client outreach and sales. So through client outreach and sales, eventually we will be able to find new external clients. But we don't necessarily need external clients because we have money within the network. So this is any organization within the network that hires the co-op to do work deliverables, right? And the amount of money that we've had is structured in the past. So the past monetary structure has been basically.
Time to pause. Please stop. Close your eyes. Count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Open your eyes.
So the past monetary structure has been Jurison, and with the Jurison, and this is structure for internal client, right? And it has been for nonprofit and for-profit. Okay, so there's the nonprofit branch of Jurison and the for-profit branch of Jurison. Okay, so do you understand that? And I can link the scope so you can see what the scope looks like. So this would be the scope for Jurison.
Yeah, that would be great.
For Jurison FQN Co-op. So this is the old one with FQN. So we do basically want to recreate these all for SFC, and then they could potentially be updated for FQN in the past again. So this is the Jurison the current Jurison draft agreement. We never finished it, so hopefully we'll finish it one day. Okay. So are we all on the same page so far?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, let me just have that be open here so we have it. Cool. All right, so basically we're proposing, it's not really a proposal, so we're going to be restructuring the client relationships. And this is really something that the clients can decide on their own. As a co-op, we don't really have a choice. And so the new structure is basically going to be kind of, Jurison doesn't go away, but we would just kind of disregard Jurison. And
Sorry, I missed that. I missed you.
Yeah, I was saying that Jurison's not going away, but we're going to kind of disregard Jurison in the short term, right? And restructure everything based on this new client that we want to get in. So the new client is BJC Trust, which is a holding trust that has beneficiaries, which basically is, you know, myself and my family, right? So I don't want to go into all the details of where and why this money came to be, but basically it came to be because like no one wanted to give me money, so instead they gave me money I can't touch. We're not allowed to touch this money to spend it. Because it doesn't meet the trust agreements, but there's a small percentage, somewhere around 10%, that can be applied to supporting my business work. So basically, in that context, I refuse to agree to this trust agreement without at least having a small percentage that can go towards our work as a co-op, right? For FQV, right? So
Time for breath.
we'll get back
Please
to that.
stop and get ready. Now inhale. 1, 2, 3. Exhale. 1, 2, 3. Pause. Inhale together. 1, 2, 3. Exhale. Relax.
Okay, so then the idea here is that the nonprofit branch would sort of evolve to be, we have a name for it. I can't remember the name. It's like Community Life Network, Everything Network, and I don't know, CCC or whatever, WCTC, whatever. We can just we can have an acronym with everything in it. We'll figure out a name. But anyways, you have the nonprofit branch of of the network and the vortex, right? Like this is been an issue because when we have the nonprofit and for-profit all under the same client, there's this issue, and you can see it in every single budget where we have the nonprofit budget and the for-profit budget. We legally have to separate the money between the nonprofit and the for-profit. So the easiest way to get rid of that and to not have to worry about it is that unless we are doing work for the nonprofit, we just simply don't get money from the nonprofit, period. And if there's no money in the for-profit, then we don't get paid unless we're doing work for the nonprofit. And when we're working for the nonprofit, we have to do the work the nonprofit needs, right? So there would be no possible structural legal issues with this new structure, which is very, very important. Does that make sense?
Okay, I'm just thinking about it.
Yeah, so then you have the for-profit branch, which is basically going to be activity, right? So you would have basically the three branches would be the trust. You would have nonprofit and for-profit would be our three branches of the client relationships. Okay, does that make sense?
But the trust support the non and the for-profit.
So there we have think about it like this. We have an umbrella trust, and there are many sub trusts and funds that the network oversees, right? And BJC Trust is one of those, right? So there's no, the trust itself, the trust in and of itself doesn't have money, it has power. And the umbrella trust is this centerpiece of the entire vortex model and like the whole network, where the power structure is in the trust, but it doesn't have money.
Close your eyes. Count.
Right?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Open your eyes.
So the money is either in the for-profit branch or in the non-profit branch or in an actual fund. In this case, it's the BJC Trust, and that trust fund for BJC is where there's money available right now. Does that make sense? That it's not like the trust has all the money. It only has structural power and decision making sort of to oversee a lot of things, but it doesn't actually have any money. That make sense?
But it gives a small percentage that can be applied to support the business model.
No, it's the other way around. The sponsored organizations like us, like SFC is a sponsored organization. When we get money, we send a percentage of our money to the umbrella organizations, and the umbrella entities, they pay us to do the work and the taxes for them, for the legal compliance, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes, of course. We do client work one of the clients is BJC Trust that got a small percentage.
No, BJC Trust is not really a client. This is a brand new investment, and so BJC Trust, and I'll go into this next, but I'll show you the structure. Like BJC Trust is going to be investing some of its holdings into a business, right? And so the business that it's investing in will be our client. Does that make sense?
The client is, who is the client? Sorry, I'm a little bit lost. Who is the client in this structure?
I mean, the point is the money. The client is where the money is coming from, and so the money is coming from BJC Trust, and the BJC Trust is going to be doing a investment of some of its holdings, a small percentage, into a business agreement, and then that money will be attached with work responsibilities that then we can do the work for the client. Does that make sense? So BJC Trust is the owner of the business that is the client, right? So the client is basically, at this point, it's kind of like BJC Trust, but it's really the business that BJC Trust is an owner of. And the name of that we're using is UET. And we'll talk more about UET in a minute. So in essence, you have the trust profit, the nonprofit, and the for-profit are the three kind of branches, right, in terms of understanding them. And then you could say, okay, the primary client, the primary client within that branch is
Time to stretch.
UET,
Please stop, stand up, and
CCC,
stretch and move around for 30
and
seconds.
activity. Okay, does that make sense? So this would be the branch of the network, and then this would be the primary client within that branch. But just because it's the primary client doesn't mean it's the only client, right? It doesn't. It's like they're all. It's like an umbrella because they're all connected and everything. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. All right. So we're on the same page so far.
I think so. I'm completely. I'm trying to understand. So,
yeah. So the key thing here is that let's get into actual work. So there's a work responsibility here. And we'll give it a number and everything, so we're super organized. So we go to the number, the work responsibility is scope updating, 183. So this would be 183 scope updating for SVG, right? So it's number 183. And the responsibility is basically to update the scope of all SFC client work. And there's three components of it. Component number one is going to be the nonprofit. Component number two is going to be the for-profit. And then component number three is the new trust profit that is going to be for UET, right? So this is the most important one, and this is the one we're going to focus on because this 1 and 2 have no new money. There's no new money, right? The nonprofit always came first. Our nonprofit structure is always the original structure. It's always the primary structure. It's always everything that we've done. We are social profit and we're primarily nonprofit. The nonprofit owns most of our for-profit organizations. The for-profit came second, and then it got all sucked into the crypto, and we have all the crypto branches and the cyber organizations. I mean, it's just a whole thing with all of that. It's insane what we're going to try to fix and get organized. And then the third part is the trust. And this is the first time that any trust is actually building a client relationship with the co-op. We've never had money in the trust ever before until now. This is the very first time. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. And so this is the new money. So we want to focus on the new money because if we spend time on number 1 and 2, we're not getting anything out of it, right? We want to increase the amount of money we have. And so the only way we can do that is through this new scope. So we need a new scope and new client agreements for all three, but we're going to start obviously with the new trust profile. So that's pretty much the work. It's just getting these scopes and agreements organized and set up properly. Okay?
Okay.
Excellent. So
How we do that?
Time to pause. Please stop. Close your eyes. Count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Open your eyes.
Okay, so there should be one other component here. I don't see it. Cool, cool. So I think we're ready to get into, maybe is this scope updating? I thought there was something in here regarding investments, but let me do a search. Search investment. Nothing investment. Investor and donor campaigns. So it's under executive. Okay? Okay. So what I'm going to be talking next is technically under number 175. So overall, if we go backwards here, this first part is all part of 185, which is client relations, right? So we are considering the client relations. We're restructuring the whole client relationships. This is all part of client relations, and we need to do this, right? So we just kind of got an understanding of our client relations. We need to do that. But then, in addition to that, we need to update the scopes of the clients, right? And build agreements around exactly what work we're going to do for each of the clients. And now we're going to have 3 separate clients. And I mean, obviously it would be better to not have these separate clients, but there is a very important legal reason why we need to have these 3 clients as separate clients. And it's simply because the money can't be mixed. They have the money has very specific different purposes that I should just go through. So obviously nonprofit money has to be publicly accountable and separate legally because it's nonprofit. For profit, we have the maximum flexibility, but it's totally illegal to take the nonprofit money to spend on the for-profit, right? So we want to make sure that never happens. And then for the trust, we only want this money to be spent on basically making more money. It needs to be focused on economic priorities, right? Focus on economic token priorities and value capture and creation, right? So we're trying to build that money is being invested for one specific purpose, and that purpose has nothing to do with the missions that we have in relationship to, you know, the vision of making the world a better place. The BJC Trust has one specific individual requirement, is that all of the investments need to support the beneficiaries. And so the value needs to be able to go to be guaranteed to go back to the beneficiaries. Does that sort of make sense?
1, 2, 3, exhale. 1, 2, 3, pause. Inhale together. 1, 2, 3, exhale, relax.
So we're on the same page as far as like why the new structure requires 3 separate clients instead of just doing it as one.
Well, I understand the legal issues,
Yeah.
especially because of the vision and mission of the organizations. But
Yeah.
this is quite a structure for sure.
Yeah, in the old model, if you looked at the budget, you could see here in the old model that we always had to put the nonprofit budget and the for-profit budget, but these were always like estimates, and they were, you know, everything was kind of mixed together, and it was just like never really an issue until the legal action. And then once the legal action happened, I mean, there's just no way ever again that we can, in any possible conceivable way, have any type of mix between for-profit and nonprofit, right? And it's not like there was mixed before. It was just, you know, it was just very nuanced, right? And we would always spend the nonprofit money, but the nonprofit money is running out. Like we just don't have a lot of nonprofit money. There's probably less than $5,000 in the nonprofit. The for-profit, the for-profit has $5,000. The nonprofit has probably around $20,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have very little for-profit money, and then the trust we're hoping to get maybe $10,000. So getting the trust could triple the amount of money available for the business side of things, right? Which is what we need right now, because the $5,000 just isn't enough, and we don't have enough money in the for-profit to really deal with all the token things, and the nonprofit can't spend a dime on tokens, because tokens by definition are for-profit. They are not in any way related to the nonprofit. That make sense?
But how? Let me ask you a question. Sorry if I miss the explanation, but if we cannot move that money to the for-profit, how we can improve that?
The for-profit will just run out of money. If the for-profit runs out of money, that sucks. But the trust money is like nonprofit money can only be spent on nonprofit. It's the most constricted. For-profit money can be spent on both nonprofit and for-profit, and trust money can also be spent on both nonprofit and for-profit. And so trust money has the most flexibility. You can do anything with trust money. Okay?
But the thing is, how we can put more money in for-profit? So we cannot run
There's
out.
only one way to put money in the for-profit, which is to get an investment, to
Time to
have...
pause. Please stop. Close your eyes. Count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Open your eyes.
Either an investment, a new client, a donor. I mean, whatever. We have to raise money. People can buy our tokens. Like if people get and acquire our tokens, right? The tokens themselves can bring money into the for-profit side as well.
Okay, so this is getting new clients.
We can also do our assets, right? So if we organize all the assets, which is actually part of UET, which I'll explain in a bit, our assets can bring in more money to the for-profit as well. Right, so if NVIDIA goes up, if all the assets go up in value, if Bitcoin goes up in value, we might have more after we get all the assets organized. Then we could have more money available for the for-profit.
Okay, I got it.
But right now, there's just very, very little. Cool. All right, so we're on the same page.
Yeah, I think so.
Cool. So we're estimating somewhere above 35,000 would be the total amount of money that we have in setting up this new client relation structure. So there's a lot of work here in doing the scope updating. We just have to deal with all that. So then the next thing is going into number 175, which is more on the executive side. So I am obviously the administrator and the trustee of BJC Trust, hence I'm BJC, right? So I don't want to get into all the details. Obviously, if anyone wants to look at the details, they're available to look at. But the point here is that it's an executive priority because it needs to go through me, because I'm the one who has to sign the contract for the for BJC Trust. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. So what we need to do is we need to get BJC Trust in a situation where it is able to invest into UET. Right? So there's two parts to this. Part number one is the investment structure, and the easiest way to structure this is as a fund, right? So there's going to be like an investment fund, and the fund would then oversee the creation of the new business, and the new business is UET, and then UET becomes the holder of the funds, and then basically the question is, what is the primary requirement for BJC Trust is to receive a token that has established value on the block on the swaps, right? So the swaps, and you can trade it, and so there's at least some established value.
To take a break. Please stop. Write down whatever you were about to say and take a break for 6 minutes.
Say again.
I am missing you a little bit.
Yeah, so I was saying that the primary requirement for BJC Trust is to make sure there's a token. So if we transfer $10,000, then we would want to have, let's say, 10,000 tokens that are each worth $1 each, right? So for example, for PB64 is currently worth 7 cents, right? 7.31371 cents. Okay, so that's the current value of PB64 on at least one of the exchanges. So if you wanted to get $10,000 of PB64, obviously this is not a good example, but it's going to cost much more. It's going to cost more than you would get more than 7,000. Wait, so it'd be 10,000 divided by 700. You get more than 70,000, 135,000. You know, up to 135,000 PB64 would represent $10,000. We probably don't even have 135,000 PB64, right? I think it's only like 40, 50. So there's no way that that BJC Trust would invest that kind of money in PB64 because it would just crash in value, which is exactly the opposite of what we want. We want a token that has established value for swaps and trades, you know, with the maximum stability possible, which is not, doesn't have to be super stable, but it just needs to be on the balance sheet, right? So the value needs to be on the balance sheet of BJC Trust, okay? So in the end, all that we need is a token, and the token would be overseen by UET, right? And so the second part of this, so once we have this structure, the second part of the structure is to, you know, develop and understand UET. So we'll go into UET. Let's take a break. Yes, so 4-minute break. When we come back, it'll be our last segment. So we can finish up with this and then go into ideally a internal operation. Okay?
Okay.
Cool. So I think we're not really doing good on time. So we need to be doing our policy training, but 3.5 minute break, and then we'll finish up with this 5-10 more minutes, and then we'll go into internal operation and wrap up. All right, cool. I'll be ready to eat around 6. I should be done in about a half hour. What's up?
Tacos will be ready in about 15 minutes.
We need about half hour of worky left. So
What's that?
maybe half hour of worky.
You have a half hour working?
I'll let James know that it'll be ready in 15 minutes. Honestly, said the tacos will be ready in 15 minutes. And I have a half hour more worky, so it won't be ready until then. Okay, I am ready.
End
It's
of
4
break.
o'clock.
Time to start. Please get focused on the session.
I'm back.
Cool. All right, so let's just finish this up here real quick. There's not too much to go through, but I think we are looking pretty good. So I just want to kind of go over what exactly needs to be done to complete the process so that we understand the output and the deliverables that we're trying to accomplish. I don't know how long it's going to take, but this would be kind of what we would need to complete to achieve like a bonus, right?
Okay.
So we need to finalize the new client scope and agreement with the co-op, right? And this is the new UET client scope agreement. Okay. So basically, there's three parts. We need to finalize the investment agreement for BJC and UTC. This is pretty easy. I have a draft already. I'm not sure exactly if it's going to be easily accessible, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's this one. Yeah, this is it. Okay. So I'll put this here. So this is, I don't know if it's shared yet, but anyways, this is the initial draft investment agreement that we're working with. And the key thing here is that we're looking at, we want to maximize the amount of money, right? So we don't know how much money that we have yet, but we do know whatever amount we do get will be about 4% of it per month is the trust agreement to spend each month, right? So basically we want to try to get as much money as possible into this agreement, and like let's say we got $25,000 into it at 4% per month. That is going to be $1,000 a month.
Sorry, 4%. That is where comes that 4%?
This is the number that I usually work with. So for example, the Jurison agreement, I don't know if I have that easily accessible, but Jurison and mini endowment trust agreement, right? So the Jurison is 4% of Jurison mini endowment trusts can be used per month, right? So this is the agreement that we've always been working with, and unfortunately it's just completely ramshackled, right? So this is the old Jurison agreement, and what we want to do for BJC Trust is make it much stricter.
Close your eyes. Count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Open your eyes.
So it should be 4% maximum per month. So with Jurison, we can always spend more than 4%, and then that's why we go into the red. So when we go into the red, it basically means that we're spending more than 4% per month. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yeah. So every time we're in the red, that's why, because we're spending too much money. But it's good to go in the red because then we're investing, because Jurison wants to support the vision of the social movement, all these visions and everything, right? BJC Trust and UET don't care at all about that, right? We want a functional financial infrastructure that brings ROI, right? Brings a return on investment. The goal is the ROI, the balance sheet and economic stability, right? So this new investment, which we're talking about, potentially agreeing to putting aside $25,000, but the goal is that times 12 months, that will equal somewhere in the range of about $10,000. So our goal is to get access to about $10,000 over the course of a year through a $25,000 investment goal project. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So, do you have any questions on how to complete the process?
Well, the thing is that you're getting me a lot of information, but also very, very important information. And
yeah, I mean, this is a lot of money. I mean, we're talking about $10,000 of new money. This is the first new money that we've had for like 5 years, right? So it's very exciting, and it requires a new set of agreements. right? We need to have a clear, basically, investment agreement. We need to have some type of plan, like a plan or a model for how the actual tokens are going to work, right? Plan for token model, and get the tokens to BGC Trust, and then we need to finalize the client scope. So basically, we can't use this money until that happens. Period. Okay, so it's like, if we want access to this money, we need to do this work. So it doesn't matter if this takes us 2 months, 3 months, whatever. It shouldn't take that long. I've already almost finished a third of it, right? The whole plan is in place, so we know exactly what we need to do. I can explain that next. That's like the next step here is to explain how UET works and what exactly UET is and how it's going to function and how we develop the value of the tokens, right? So that's the next step. And I don't know if we want to do that now, if we want to get into that some other time. But
Time for breath. Please stop and get ready. Now inhale. 1, 2, 3. Exhale. 1, 2, 3. Pause. Inhale together. 1, 2, 3. Exhale. Relax.
so the plan can be very, very simple. We don't need, I mean, basically a spreadsheet for the plan is more than enough. I can just explain it. And then we can easily utilize the previous Jurison scope as the template for the new scope. So, I mean, the work that needs to be done is already 90% done. We just take the templates, we update them. You know, it'll take me probably 10 to 15 minutes to go over the plan for UET and how it's going to work. And then we just need to finalize all these agreements. Once we get the money, then the real work begins, which is actually implementing the UET plan. Okay? That make sense?
Okay.
Yeah.
Doing my best. There's a lot of information, and but you told me in the beginning, do the work, make it simple. So if we can like synthesize this to do step by step, so I can help you to move this forward, that would be ideal for me.
I mean, this is it. Like, step 1, finalize the agreement. Step 2, make sure we have a plan. And step 3, we need to have the new scope and an agreement with the co-op, right? Where the actual money comes into us, right? So we just need to do one at a time. So I think it's helpful to go over understand the process to know what needs to be done to accomplish our goal, right? Otherwise, it's like you don't even know what's going on, right? So I also feel like it would be helpful to understand what UET is and how we're going to create the tokens and what that's all going to mean, because until we do that, we don't actually really get full access to the money, right? It's like, in order to get the investment, we need to hand over the tokens for the investment. Does that make sense?
Hand over?
Hand over. Like for example, if you're gonna
hand over. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you want to invest in us, we give you tokens, right? So then you have tokens that are worth X amount of value, and then we have the money that you just invested. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then we oversee the money, you get your tokens, and you can always sell your tokens at any time as an investor. So that's what BJC wants. And we don't have that right now. We don't have the token that BJC wants is not organized properly, and that's what I want to explain to you next, is understanding what this whole plan is and why it's so important and why we want to put all of our money into it. Okay? So I think that is all we really need to go over now. I could probably spend 5 minutes and just kind of give you a quick overview, and then we could skip the internal operations and just wrap up and check out.
Please stop. Close your eyes. Count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Because I think we're running out of time. So I don't know if we're going to get to any internal operations. So maybe I just do 5 more minutes on just understanding UET and then complete this, and then we just wrap up and we'll be done. That sound good?
Yes, sir. Let's go ahead.
Okay. So UET obviously stands for the Umbrella Everything Token. That's obviously not the name of the token, it's the name of the goal, right? The goal is to create a umbrella token that has value of every single other token throughout the network, right? That basically is an umbrella token of all tokens, right? Does that make sense?
Create an umbrella token that has value, but I think we already have a lot of tokens. So we need to create a new one?
We just create tokens and more tokens. I mean, it's endless tokens. Like that's what we do. We're not. It's not about the tokens. It's about the value. And the only way to hold and capture value in a multi-value capture model is to have unlimited. I mean, there's endless ability to have more and more tokens. Like we don't. There's no. Every time we have a new type of value, there's just automatically a new token for it. That's the model that we do.
Every single token requires an investment. So, for example, the last thing that you showed me yesterday, I see the bars, I see the volume, and that costs money. So, create a new token should be representative as a return investment. So, I think this could be a situation that can drain the organization if creating the tokens, creating tokens can we spend a lot of money if I understand correctly.
I mean, it costs money for the time and the energy, and like obviously setting it up in the pools. There's always like a liquidity loss. There's like an impermanent loss, like all that stuff. So of course there's definitely costs involved, but as I was mentioning before, the most important tokens are the umbrella tokens, right? So you have the base value tokens, and the base value tokens are the most, obviously the value is held in the base value tokens, but the public doesn't need to know about the base value tokens because there's too many of them. There's gonna be hundreds of base value tokens, right? So we have all these base value tokens, and normal people in the public just couldn't keep track and want to know about how they all work. It doesn't matter. They don't care.
Time to stretch. Please stop.
All right, quick stretch.
Stand up and stretch and move around for 30 seconds.
Okay. So what I was saying was how the public just doesn't even know about all the details of every single base value token because there's going to be hundreds of them, right? We have tons of them. And eventually the technology that we are going to be working on, either someone else is going to create or we're going to create it, but the eventual future technology is that basically all of the base value is held in capitalization within smart tokens that are basically in the background. Like no one needs to see them, but you can access them if you want to, but you wouldn't necessarily need to create them. So we don't have that technology yet. I can't. It's hard to even explain it in words because it doesn't exist that I have access to, right? So what we do have access to is we have access to be able to create unlimited numbers of tokens, and each token, it does have a small cost, but the tokens that we're focusing on is on very low cost chains, right? So when we create lots of tokens, we do them on very low cost chains. We have very small amounts of liquidity, so it's not a lot of money. Does that make sense? But the umbrella tokens are important. So the umbrella tokens, we want to put much more effort and money into them, and then the umbrella tokens will represent the accumulative value of all the sub tokens under the umbrella. And so the idea of having this would be kind of like the everything token, the umbrella everything token, or UET, is an idea that will be the most important, the most valuable, and the most public token of all our tokens. In other words, we only really need one single token. Does that make sense?
Well, that is like the master token.
Exactly. Yes, it's the master token. So we only need one single token for the public. Like the public only needs to know about this one token, and they will be able to immediately invest in everything across the entire board of FQV, right? The entire, like, just buy one token and you get all of them, right? Does that make sense?
Okay, and the other tokens, the PV64
Time to pause. Please stop. Close your
Or
eyes.
way down
Count.
at the bottom.
1,
Yeah.
2, 3,
down.
4, 5.
Way down at the bottom.
Open your eyes.
So if you think about the money, let's think about the money for a second. Let's take Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Ethereum, US dollar, Tether, whatever, right? And let's say we're talking about $25,000. We're talking about having $25,000 liquidity pool. So if we had $25,000 liquidity pool, and it doesn't matter whether it's 5,000 or whatever, it's going to be enough. Somewhere between 5,000, 25,000 liquidity pool. Once you create the everything token, which I think we have it's either like the V2, Y6, I don't remember exactly what it's called. I can actually look it up here, but we have a name for it. SFC tokens, here we go. So this is the kind of overall structure of the tokens. I'm not sharing my screen, but with you, but it's called the everything token is the V2 V4 token. So currently the name of the token that we're using is the V2 V4 token, and this V2 V4 token being the UET, right, the umbrella everything token, would have a lot of value. So, but then what you do is you take the V2 V4 token and then you pool it with, let's say, TEAD, right? Or you pool it with the MUKN. So you could do V2 V4 with MUKN, which is our SFC umbrella token for our umbrella work token, right? So basically, once you create the primary liquidity pool and then you pool your sub tokens with your primary token, this is very low cost because you can't really extract value because all of the tokens are internal to us already because you're pooling it with another internal token. So as long as you're pooling with an internal token, there's very little to no cost per pool. And then if you want to sell your MUKN token, you would be able to sell it through the V2 V4 token pool with Bitcoin, right? So this would be the biggest liquidity pool that we might deal with, except for possibly Diverge and Root and Sim. But we'll talk about that later. Those are like the primary asset pools that are going to be bigger. But this would be the biggest liquidity pool for equity. Okay, and there's three parts to it. So the UET value structure is going to have three parts. The first part is the assets, and the assets are stored in Sim, Root, and Diverge, right? So Sim, Root, Diverge are the asset branches and companies, and that also involves with Canopy.
Please stop and get ready. Now inhale, 1, 2, 3, exhale, 1, 2, 3, pause, inhale together, 1, 2, 3, exhale, relax.
Then we have basically, we can call it, activity / Jamesh / this is like all equity value that is non-cyclical, right? Cyclical, so it doesn't, it's not temporal, right? Then you have basically our network and co-op tokens, which are temporal. So these are the temporal tokens. So there's the three different branches of UET. There's the the assets. The assets themselves are literally Bitcoin. They're stocks. They're the actual assets that are just have direct value. That makes sense? Like assets, very simple.
Mm-hmm.
The equity, number two, there's no actual value behind the equity because it's just equity. There's no value, right? So when you buy a SIM asset, the asset is backed by Bitcoin or US dollars, right? Or stocks. So there's value there. It can't crash. It can't disappear. Whereas equity value, there's nothing backing it. It's just equity value, right? And all of the number two equity value is equity value that is a one-time token that basically it represents value in a project which is not temporal. It's just a single token that represents that project forever without ever stopping. Okay, that makes sense?
Yeah, I'm doing my best. please go ahead.
Yeah. So this is like, think about it like normal equity, right? Number 3 is our temporal equity, right? This is temporal equity, which is very, very unique to us, where basically every 2.5 years, the entire token infrastructure transfers over to a new start, a new beginning. Okay, so in our temporal equity model for the co-op and everything, every 2.5 years, the entire infrastructure transfers over to a new set of tokens. And it's a temporal equity model, and it's very, very important to understand value capturing and value pools and holding value in terms of time and not just category, because value changes over time, and it's very important to understand the difference between value. In our case, we do it every 2.5 years.
Please stop. Close your eyes. Count.
Okay,
1,
so that
2, 3, 4, 5. Open your eyes.
So that's UET. That's the entire structure that we're going to be building. There's going to be 3 sub-umbrella tokens to UET.
Let me ask you a question before you moving forward.
Yeah.
I don't understand that part. For example, so the umbrella token, let's say that it's okay, it's already working, and in 2.5 years, we need to create a new umbrella token.
In December, all of our tokens are transferring over for SFC. So SFC, all of our SFC tokens, all SFC tokens will end on December 30th, 2024, and there will no longer be any minting ever again in history, right? For our tokens. For example, PB64, right? PB64 will end on December 30th. And there will never be another PB64 minted ever again in history, right? So we will start new on basically, January 1st, 2025 for 2.5 years. We will have a new token. I think I already have the names of the token. Let's see if I have it here.
But I got a question.
Yeah.
If we create an unlimited supply of tokens, how the older tokens are going to keep their value?
Yeah, the value of the tokens will actually go up because of the limited supply. The less supply you have, the more value each individual token is worth. So the value of the tokens actually goes up. So think about it like this: December 30th, 2024 will be the mass burning event. So we will burn mass amounts of tokens on December 30th or after that, right after that, and you will just massively shrink the supply of all of our tokens for, in this case, it's called the 98-degree west leap era, which lasts 2.5 years. Okay? And then we start the new token. So this will be the start of the new work tokens for SFC, which will start on December 31st and will be at the new moon, right? It'll be the new moon. And these will be for 2.5 years. So we only have to do this once every 2.5 years. Doesn't happen very often. And we'll have a new set of tokens. And then these tokens will have very little value at the beginning, which is actually very beneficial.
Please stop. Write down whatever you were about to say and take a break for 6 minutes.
We want our tokens to have very little value at the beginning, primarily for tax liability purposes. But either way, the most important thing is that it holds the value. So for example, the 98-degree west leap era tokens will always be intertwined with the legal action, all the problems with FQN. That'll never go away forever in history. But the new tokens starting in December 31st will always be separate from FQN 100%. Does that make sense?
Trying to understand, but I'm putting all my attention into this.
Yes, and eventually the technology will exist where we never have to create a new token again, because we'll click a button and it'll just automatically create hundreds of vessels of value that hold all the different types of value for all the different types of contributions that we're creating. And then all of that will automatically be done in the background, right? But there's no technology that exists that will do that for us right now. We want to create that technology one day, but for now, what we're going to do is we just use the individual separate tokens, which, yes, is manual process of doing this, is a lot more work, but it's functional. So for the first time in history, because of cryptography, we can do this multi token value capture model that just literally was not even accessible even 5 years ago, right? Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Technology and information is moving quite rapidly.
Yes, and I think it'll be 5, maybe 10 years before this technology that we're trying to have access to will be available.
What I think is going to, the AI is going to cut everything maybe in half. You told me 10 years, it's good, maybe 5 years.
Possibly, yes, absolutely, yes. So it's you know, if we can find an investor to help us invest in this new technology and work with existing technology, I mean, the first person I would hire would be a researcher to research all the existing technologies and make sure that there's not some automated ledger model that we can already use that's doing what we need to do. If it doesn't exist, which I've done a lot of research myself and have never found it, the next step that we would do is, like you're saying, work with an AI professional and start coding with AI, and it'd be 100 times cheaper than hiring an actual coder. So we could potentially get an investment of just like $5,000 to $10,000 and get started with this technology project instead of $100,000 to $200,000. So yes, I agree.
That brings me a question. What is the code to create an AI is whatever language or local language?
Well, we don't need to create an AI. We would just use AIs that already exist to help us do the coding for the new automated ledger technology that we need.
Okay.
Yeah. So, anyways, going back to just making sure you understand UET, right? There's 3 like the UET umbrella everything token is called V2, V4. Okay. So the very first sub token would be the assets token, which basically is the SIM, would be the SIM token, and that's just basically represents value of existing assets. Then you have all of the Jamesh tokens and the activity tokens and all of the non-cyclical, non-temporal equity tokens. And that's a massive project, and there's lots of value there that's very important to address because it's a mess. And then you have all of our co-op tokens and the temporal tokens. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to get this all set up and basically top down. So the whole idea is we have two token profile client responsibilities. One is bottom up for the SFC co-op base value, and that goes from the base value up to the everything token. And then the second one is top down, and it goes from the UET umbrella token down to the base value. Okay, so it's kind of going, we're going to go from both directions simultaneously and try to connect everything together. And then eventually, once it all connects together, you're basically creating one huge interconnected ecosystem of all of our tokens, which represents each different category of project value. And it will all be summed up into one single umbrella UET token. Okay? And this could probably be done in, let's say, 4 to 8 months that we could get this completed. Right? But even within this model, we could get access to the $10,000 within a month easily. And then we could get the SFC tokens, you know, I would say $5,000 of value, you know, so everyone would be able to really extract a lot of value in the SFC tokens within 2 months, right? But that the bigger picture might take, you know, 4 to 8 months, okay? So if we just focus on this and nothing else for the next 4 to 8 months, at the end of this, we will have, you know, publicly recognizable tokens that are slowly starting to build in value and starting to interact with the public in a way that is just unstoppable. And then from that, we just
And
slowly,
4 o'clock. Time to start. Please get focused on the session.
start building in all of our all of our other components. And the multimedia needs to come beforehand, but multimedia is part of a functional token, right? But we need to start doing our client sales, you know, donors, investment relations. So right now it's hard to really engage in investment relations because we don't really have anything to present, right? But once we get this all done, we'll have something amazing to present, and then we can really get into investor relations, donor relations, client relations, grants, like all this stuff. We can start really bringing in a lot more money, client sales, especially once we have our multimedia functional, which is part of our plan. The multimedia functionality is essential, and that's probably what we should work on Monday, is getting into our communications and multimedia, because that is a big gap and really the only other gap that we have. So anyways, I think this is good. If you have any last question, you can. Otherwise, we can go into wrap up and then we're done.
Well, again, thank you so much for giving all this explanation. I pay a lot of attention. There is a lot of stuff that needs to be done. But okay, let's start step by step, and with continuity, that is the key. Every single day, show up. So yeah.
Yeah, we'll get there. And I love this because it's like, it actually creates a single focal point, right? Because sometimes it can just be overwhelming when you're just in the middle of this whole soup and everything. Like the umbrella everything token, like UET, is just a singular point of organization where we can actually organize everything top down, so we know exactly the endpoint. Because like when you're just in the middle of it, it's like there's no organization. You never know where it all connects to and how it all works. Whereas this will be a very specific organizational pyramid that will know exactly how every single token within the entire infrastructure is related. And I think it's going to help tremendously. You know what I mean? Because it'll actually have a single point of reference, so you can see the exact relationship between every single token in the ecosystem, specifically for FQV, right? So again, there's two clients. One is FQV, is the overall everything for the Vortex, the network, everything. And then we just have the SFC co-op, which is just one single organization of, you know, let's say 15 to 20 organizations plus, you know, 50 to 100 projects, right? So we have all these different projects within the organizations, and then we have the 50 to 20 organizations, and SFC Co-op is just one single organization. And then once we launch and go public, we are going to be doing more sponsorships, and ideally we'll get an additional 15 to 20 organizations that we're working with, you know,
Time to
within
pause. Please stop.
2 years,
Close your eyes.
right?
Count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Open your eyes.
So it's only a matter of time. Like if we can get functional and we can actually, I mean, right now it's just me and you, right? So if we can get functional and get organized, then we can actually have many, many organizations. We've never advertised, we've never launched, we've never done anything for 20 years. It's all word of mouth. Everything that we are and everything that we've become has been 100% word of mouth. And so if we actually launch and get public, the you know, who knows what'll happen. You know, that's the goal. It's been the goal for so long, but we've just never been able to do it. Anyways, back to wrap up. So line 47 is wrap up, setup, view up. I think we spent quite a while on this, maybe 0.75. So this is J Miguel, and then we did the work continuity group model for about a half an hour, and then we did the client relations, etc. Let's call this was number 185. And the work continuity group model was training, right? So we're going to want to organize that as an actual training. Anyways, I don't see it. So I can't remember what number training is. Where is our, this is audience single spreadsheet. So let's go here. Training. So this would be policy training, leader. Let's call it leadership training. No, let's call it onboarding training. These will come very early, so we'll do number 33. Okay. So client relations, we spent like an hour on that, so this should add up to 2 hours. Let's see, I think we're a little over 2 hours. We're over 2 hours. Cool, 2.25 hours. So next steps, we're going to do multimedia, continue with tokens and the new client agreements. Anything else that you can think of?
To start on Monday with all the setup already done before starting the session. So implement what we discussed today, please. Yeah.
Sure, but again, it's not required at all. It's just part of the training, being like, look, this is how our structure, that's how our sessions are structured, you know. But if you don't do that, it's not a big deal.
No, I want to do that. So yeah, I don't want to waste time talking about something and not implement it. So I'm going to do that.
Time for breath. Please stop and get ready. Now inhale, 1, 2, 3, exhale, 1, 2, 3, pause. Inhale together, 1, 2, 3, exhale, relax.
Cool. All right, so I think we are good to go here. I think we're done. Very cool. I know it's a lot, but again, this is the very first time ever that we're going over this, so I basically gave you 90% of the information. Like there's not very much more to give you. So next time we just slowly go into it a little bit more by a little bit more, and we just start working on it. And I mean, these things take weeks, if not, will take months and months and months. So it's like, it's good to get the overview, and then we'll just keep zeroing in on the actual work, day by day.
Okay. For me, it is an 8. Was a good session, a lot of information, but showing up, we can get the job done. So yeah.
Cool, awesome. Thank you, Miguel. And then, you know, I do want to get you helping out with the recordings. I think that's another component of our structure for the follow-up, would be getting the recordings. But I'll do it for now. So, you know.
Okay, let's go step by step.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's it. I'll talk to you on Monday. So have a great weekend.
Oh, sure.
Oh, this will be my first weekend off for a month.
Oh, great to hear. So I hope that you have a great weekend. Please hug your relatives and
yes.
Please go to the sun.
I'm sure I'll do some work, but no sessions are scheduled at this time. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Okay. Goodbye.